Comic book fans, this is H.H. Sherman from Sigma Comics coming to you from the greatest city in the world. It's New York City. You know it. And of course, we have another great video for you. It's been a while, so we're going to get that started right now. But first, as always, a quick sip of the Calico mug. Got to get that in while you listen to a train in the back. Good as always. All right, let's get right to it. Criticism. Criticism is something that's very important in any creative endeavor, any creative field, because it helps to give you texture and understanding for what it is and how your work is received in its respective marketplace. In our case, it's comic books. So we always welcome criticism, both negative and positive. We see it as the same thing because they're both opportunities to grow. Of course, we appreciate the positive criticism because it tells us that we're doing some really good things, but even the negative can be great too. But what's incredible to me, being a creator this day and age, is an alarming trend I'm seeing. And it's the seeming inability of comic book creators to take criticism. Before I continue on that, I'm just realizing that I didn't say anything about this elephant in the room. As many of you know, I am a former prize fighter. And I had been putting off this procedure for a very long time. And I finally got my hand, my right hand, my power hand corrected. I had some little bit of an issue there. So just had a bit of a break between shows, and I'm now finally taking care of this and addressing this. So for any of you watching, that's why I have this on my hand here, and hopefully in a few weeks I'll be able to, the surgery that I had will be corrected very nicely and heal, and I'll be back in business at a show near you, at a convention near you. All right, now that that's out of the way, back to the story. So criticism. You know, it's amazing how poorly many creators today, many comic book creators today, in my view, take to negative criticism. You know, anytime you create anything, you're going to get different types of criticism and from different types of people. Okay, you're going to get professional criticism, which comes from, in our industry, comic book reviewers. These are people who have, in many cases, spent decades, in many cases generations, reading comic books. So they have a certain palette and understanding, the history of certain characters and or the medium of comic books. So they, they speak from a very good, strong platform, right? And taking criticism from these individuals is great because, again, you're receiving this feedback from people who have a firm understanding of, the medium, right? So there's lots of things to learn, again, both negative and positive. And then there's just feedback that anybody can give, reviews. Reviewing is a pretty common part of our culture today. Years ago, in comic books at least, there was a section in many comic books that allowed interaction between the creators and the fan base. And, some of the responses from, in the way of these letters on this page, some of the responses were inquiries about the subject matter in the comic book in a previous issue, typically, right? So the audience can get further understanding. And the creative team, typically editors, would create this page, would have this page to allow the fans to interact, but not only that, get answers to their question, which in turn can help, further enlighten the rest of the audience because they might have had the same type of question. And I think, generally speaking, I think that's sort of the way it works, right? The editors would take questions that would be very beneficial to the audience. All right, so there's lots of different types of criticism, both fan-based, people in passing who read a comic book, they'll post a review somewhere, Google reviews or something like that, right? And then you have your professional criticism. Well, a lot of times what we're seeing today is when a creator gets negative feedback, they'll lash out. They'll lash out at the reviewer or criticizer or feedback, whatever you want to call the person reviewing the comic book or gave their 2 cents about it, folks, they will lash out. They will call the people who reviewed the comic book all sorts of different names, hurl accusations, maybe even call them things that have nothing to do with what the reviewer stated. It's really crazy. I mean, I can point to some examples, but I don't want to really focus on the negative stuff. But the truth is that this seems to be a common thing. It's happening so often that it's now just accepted. When you receive negative feedback, instead of learning about whatever the feedback was, whether positive or negative, you as a creator are deciding, you know what? No, you're just an a-hole. You're just a bigot, or you're just a racist, or whatever these things are. Again, in some cases have nothing to do with the criticism being provided. Okay? This is what's happening in creative comic books today. I am absolutely shocked, and it's bewildering. It's really bizarre. And let me give you some context, and let me tell you why I'm doing this video. Make this clear. I'm creating this video to help people who are creatives like myself accept criticism. And I think I'm a good person to accept it, and I'm going to qualify that statement, starting with the story. Okay, I'm very fortunate in that I went to art school. Okay, I actually went to art school, a 4-year art school. It's called the School of Visual Arts here in New York City, and it's a damn good one. Okay, now I did not go to school for comic books. Okay, I actually majored in advertising, and one of those classes was taught by an incredibly potent creator, a really wonderful creative director, extremely talented and renowned, award-winning creative director. I don't want to say his name because I'm going to say some things that are, pretty charged, but they're very true. And I don't have his permission to, say his name. So I haven't seen the man in, decades. So anyway, I had a teacher once, okay? And his class was known for being very, very intense, okay? So this was a sophomore class. So this is now your second year at SVA. You're competing with people from all around the world coming to this school. And the format of this class was they gave you an assignment, or he gave you an assignment. Let's just say, as an example, Pepsi. That was the assignment for the week. So you'd come in, let's say this class was on a Tuesday, and you'd come in with 4 or 5 different executions of an ad that may be part of one ad campaign, or maybe they're individual ad campaigns. And you just walk in, and you just, with a thumbtack, you tack up your work on a piece of paper on the wall, okay? And it's just, drywall, you tack it right in there. It's perfectly fine. There's no problem. That's what the wall is there for you to tack up your work, okay? All right. So the teacher comes in, and now you're talking about dozens of, pieces of paper on the wall. And of course the ads are, they're sketched out with a headline. You just sketch out the ad, You have a person saying something, whatever, a car, whatever the ad subject matter may be. All right. So bottom line, guy comes in, little short guy, doesn't say a word, goes up and down, puts his coat down, his coffee, takes his jacket off, looks at the class, doesn't really say much, and then he starts looking at the work while he twiddles his mustache there. And the idea is that he's going to start taking the crappy ones down first, and then at the end he's going to really hold up the last 15 or 20 and spend some time talking about why that execution was good. And then of course as part of the class, over the course of the class, we learn the goods, the rights and wrongs of advertising creation, right? So let's just say that in the beginning of that class, as he was taking the crappy work down, or the poorly executed work, there were, mind you, these are, these are students. So some of these kids, I say kids, some of them are, but some of these people are, grown adults that are in their 30s and 40s because they're getting a degree in advertising, right, at the school. Let's just say that there was tears. All right, people were crying in some cases. I remember vividly one time an interaction between a fellow this was a grown man, from a different country. And I think there was a little bit of a language barrier. And his work was one of the first to be selected. And his paper got crumpled up, thrown in the garbage. And the teacher's like, who the hell did this? And the guy, it almost came to blows, okay? The point is that you go to a class like, it's a cutthroat class, all right, in New York City. So you had to, if you didn't already have thick skin, you were going to have it by the end of the class if you survived. A lot of people didn't survive the class. Their emotions couldn't take it, okay? I tell you this story to give you some perspective from my background, the kind of criticism I can take. Aside from the fact that I went to a very difficult and challenging art school and have a very a firm and solid ability to take criticism, I'm also a former fighter, a prize fighter. Okay, so I could definitely deal with adversity very well. And this is not to say that everyone has the same steely sort of background. I say this because it's important, if you are going to create something, to understand that there will be feedback, there will be criticism. Okay, when you create anything, any creative endeavor, and you put it out into the world, it's you projecting what's inside your mind, heart, your body, and spirit. You're putting out to the world, you're sharing with others to enjoy, to take what they will from it. And there really isn't a right and wrong. All right, so this is just the way it is. And you have to understand, again, this is something that you learn in school. I don't know if many of these people who are working in Marvel and DC, who are lashing out like this at their customers, went to school or have schooling in this. But I think it is important to have schooling when you're going to call yourself a professional in something, and understand, have some kind of formal training in something. Okay, this is why you don't take someone off the street and put them in a boxing ring or in an octagon and call them a professional prize fighter. Okay, you have to pay your dues in the gym. You have to spend, in many cases, many years perfecting your craft. And once you have something, okay, and mainly it's your trainers and your coaching staff that say, hey, this kid's got something. Let's take this thing to the next level. And you start, doing tour fights, right? You start touring. All right, so unfortunately, there seems to be quite a few people out there in comics these days that don't have this background. And this is basic, folks. This is pretty basic stuff. If you're a professional creator, you really should be able to take criticism. And I'm going to give you an actual example of how to take criticism here. All right, so this is something, or at least how we take criticism. This is issue 4, Here Comes Calico. We recently had a review. A gentleman who we're not going to name here because it's not really constructive. Because in this case, we don't think he really did a good job of reviewing our comic book. But we're just going to use this as an example. Okay, he just reviewed issue 7 of our series, but in doing so, it became clear. I mean, it had been clear to us and to me specifically that starting with issue 4, he had lost what's actually truly happening in the story. Okay, so when he's reviewing the comic book, you cannot, by any fair account, can you call it an accurate or fair review, because he's not even getting these things correct. What he's saying is not accurate in the actual review. And I'm going to give you a case in point starting with issue 4. Okay, this reviewer said, this is his own words. The script suffers from disorganized thinking. For instance, the big brute comes out of nowhere. You don't know who sent him, what he's after, or why. Okay, now he's referring to the Pound, who makes a pretty awesome appearance here in issue 4. And what he's saying in there, what we don't like about the comic book, he's saying that the story is completely disorganized. It doesn't make sense because you don't know, the guy comes out of nowhere, and all of a sudden he's there causing all kinds of chaos. And I'm going to tell you how he's actually wrong very, very easily. Okay, so early on in the comic book, we see, many of you already know the story. You don't really have this issue. You already know that the big bad here, ODB, is trying to understand what happened, why his money got taken by the Calico in the previous issue. Okay, in one of these dogfights. Okay, and then Sticker says, "Hey, did you hear that, Mr. Pound? The dogfighting, that's your department. Your department has a problem." All right, and the guy says, "Hey, he made off with money, blah blah blah," and then he says right here, He says, we don't do problems, Dog Pound. And you see right there, there's the pound. Right there. This is early on in the issue. They're talking to him. There's the big pound, the big guy. See how bigger he is compared to everybody else. Okay, and later on in the issue, he makes an appearance and he takes care of what he has to take care of. So when I read that in the first time, again, this is back in issue 4, this was happening. Okay, I was like, wow, he got this wrong. And instead of reaching out to the guy and correct him, say, hey, this wasn't fair. This is wrong. How dare you? This is so unethical, and you're a bigot. And you're, how dare you? You're a racist. We actually thanked him. We thanked him for the review, as we've done with all the reviews. Thank you very much, sir. We really appreciate your support and all this. We appreciate your criticism, etc. Firm, etc., etc. So, the guy's clearly wrong. Okay, the character was introduced. There's a clear order on why he's going to go after the Calico now, because he was ordered to. Quite literally. All right, so starting in that issue, and of course all the subsequent reviews, they haven't been by any definition fair or accurate, because he's already lost on the story. All right, so and this is, we chalk it up to, well, understand that a professional reviewer receives dozens, and I mean dozens, of comic books every single month, and this individual has to review all these comics. And when you say to yourself, well, how do you learn from this if it's actually a bad review? Let me explain something. So positive and negative reviews, what's the difference? So a positive review is one that really champions the good things that you're doing in the book, and a negative one is one that points out the errors and the flaws in a book. So we've clearly determined in here that any negative review that this gentleman is now going to give us it's not something that we can learn from, because clearly he's not accurate in his assessment. Okay, he gave us in the last review he gave us a 6.5 and says, well, this is it's still solid. Sort of mitigating that any guilt he might have for giving us a pretty bad negative review by saying that it's still 6.5 out of 10. Well, I don't know where you went to school from, but where 6.5 out of 10 is a 65 out of 100. Okay, where I went to school is you get a 65. That's literally just passing, because you got a 64, you failed. All right, and I can tell you that issue 4, issue Calico, is a bestseller. We sell out every single show that we do. And not only that, we have legends in comics who love our series, who are helping us guide this series, and we're pretty satisfied that we're doing the right thing, not only in putting together a really good comic book, but by our audience who loves it, right? So, but what do? What have we done since that review? We've kept sending that same gentleman more and more comics. Every single one that comes out, we very passionately send him the comics, hoping that he's going to, give us credit, for the work that we're doing. And listen, now it's clear the guy's lost in the story. So when he went to review 7, it was just it was the same. It was more of the same. The guy's totally lost in the story. And guess what? We're gonna keep sending him comics, because what you gotta understand is, it's not up to him. Okay, listen to this very clearly, comic book creator. It's not up to him to be right or wrong. What did I say before? Anytime you create anything, okay, any creative endeavor, okay, what you take away, the takeaway is going to be different for everyone. All right. So in his case, he made a mistake. He didn't see that the antagonist clearly makes, not only does he make an appearance, so he does not come out of nowhere. He's clearly there right from the beginning of the story, but it's also explained why he's going to be there later on in the story. Everything is concise, and the story actually does make sense, and it does fit. It's not disorganized or disjointed, as he said. Nor have we had that criticism from anyone who's reviewed that issue. And we had dozens of people review it, and we have a lot of wonderful support for the series. However, there's always a chance that he's going to find something negative. That's why we're always paying attention, again, both positive and negative, to the feedback that we get. Because just because somebody's wrong that one time, and now unfortunately he is lost in the story because it is a mini series. So in this case, it's not really a good example, but he might find something else that might help us and be constructive for our ability to create a great series. And that's what we're looking for, and that's what you should be looking for. Okay, when you create a nice cake and you're having people taste it, this is wonderful, it tastes fantastic. And you have something, I'm noticing like a little bit too much salt in here. It's important, okay, because now you can say, they wasn't really getting that, or the other person wasn't really getting it. Maybe it's because these other people had a higher threshold for that taste. So it's important for you to put your work out there because you're able to continuously improve the product. And that's the wonderful thing about criticism, both negative and positive. And why we're always going to continue to seek it out, even when the criticism is wrong. In this case, it's clearly wrong. It's by definition, it's wrong. Okay. Now, if I were the reviewer, I'd go back and I'd change all the ratings he's given us because they're clearly based on the issue he's having with the story. He's not understanding it. For instance, in this latest issue 7, he's saying that Kim Min is the one who's behind sending all these, and he's totally lost. He's the guy already by issue 7. He has no idea what's going on, and you can say, well, it's his fault because he clearly inaccurately depicted and took away from the story what's not even happening in the story, and now he doesn't even know who the right villains are because, again, once you make an error like that, it's like the set of dominoes. So even though now this gentleman is totally lost in the story, there's a case to say that it's not his fault for being lost. I should have likely been clear. Now, even though you and I can clearly see that the Pound is there, okay, he's there right there. This is page 5 of the story. Okay, he's clearly in this panel, and they're talking to him. Okay, maybe it wasn't clear enough for him, and now as a result, we're getting these negative reviews. Okay, so we're not going to correct him. That's up to him. That's his job if he decides. Hopefully, he sees this video. And I will send it to him. Okay, that I'll do. But I'm not going to name him. I'm not going to do anything like that because, again, that's not constructive. And the man does a wonderful job of doing the work he does. Just made a mistake. That's all. All right. But again, this video is not for him. It's for you, the creator, who is lashing out at your customers or potential customers and costing yourself business as a result. Okay. Let me make this very clear. This video is not for the reviewer, the gentleman who made these errors here. It's for you, the creator, who is responding in an incredibly negative way to receiving negative feedback. Okay, you're not learning from the negative feedback that you're getting, and frankly, in pretty much all the cases these reviews that I've seen that say negative things about these comics, a lot of them are right. Okay, there are quality issues, and instead of lashing out at your customer who is very passionate about comics, how about you just go back and really just sit down with your creative team, be like, let's listen to this feedback collectively. And if collectively, more than one person is saying these things, then that's called consensus, right? And then you can see that there's clearly a problem. If 100 people in a room say, dude, you kind of smell, you might want to take a shower or something. Well, guess what? The likelihood of that being an accurate statement is true. Now, if one person says that, in this case, it's one person who said this about our comic book series, is totally lost on what's happening in the story. Well, now you can simply ignore that feedback as we've done, because it's not helpful, and we know by definition it's an error. It's based on error. So all we could do is hope that we get a fair assessment by this reviewer, and he joins the rest of the reviewers who have been very positive of our series. But the bottom line is, now you can ignore that. But if it was the case that we had hundreds of people saying, "Oh, Jesus, this Here Comes Calico thing doesn't even make sense. You got things coming from nowhere. Characters make appearances that don't even make sense because this guy comes out of nowhere," like this fellow said. Well, then we have a problem. And then I'd have to go back and sit down. Well, listen, I'm writing a story that people aren't understanding. And I'd get to work. That's not the case here. So now I know I can continue with the story very successfully. And that's why we're doing so well with the story. And, we're selling out everywhere we go. And we appreciate that. So anyway, that's something that you can learn from. All right. As I look at my handy again. By the way, I'm keeping it up here because I was told by the doctor that I have to keep it above my heart. So I'm just keeping it, vertical here. Probably gonna have to do this for the next 10 days, according to the doctor. So apparently that helps with reduce the swelling and whatnot. So in addition to antibiotics, I got to make sure that this stays, vertical like this. But anyway, that's the video for today, and I really hope it is helpful because, listen, not everybody has thick, tough skin. I have the benefit of not only having very good schooling, but also being very well versed in the fisticuffs. And let me tell you, it's not just the physical and the brawn. When you're a fighter, you develop thick skin, not only just physically, but also mentally, emotionally and spiritually. It's not easy. It's one of the few sports where you're really alone in there. Even though you have your corner, you're slaying the dragon yourself, and you're going up against the most dangerous creature on the planet, man. All right, so it does help. I'll tell you, fighting is such a wonderful thing because it really improves you in lots of different areas. And this is one of them. All right, so anyway, that's it for today. Make sure to hit Kickstarter very soon. Why? Because Volume 3 of Here Comes Calico will be on Kickstarter very soon. I have to wait for this thing to heal so that I can get more. I can actually use it at the hand. I'm a righty, by the way. This is messed up. This is my right hand. So I'm going to be out of commission for a while, even though I have been doing things with my left hand. So I'll actually probably go and do some things here. Anyway, that's it. Give us your support. Go on Kickstarter very soon for Volume 3, which will be out on Kickstarter. And you know what happens when you support that Kickstarter, or when you go on SigmaComics.com and support our comic book series. When you support Here Comes Calico, you're supporting the fight against animal abuse, and we need you, and we love you for it. Guys, keep on fighting for animals.